So what's up, everybody? This is We Love Hip Hop here. It's AGB. I got my man over here for a big interview. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Shane William Kimber. I'm better known on the interweb as OGR-SCINTILLA, and I love to make music. And I guess we'll get into the rest from there, but that's a pretty good starting point.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start it out simple. We'll go to the music in a second. Let's just sort of give them like a brief story of your life and how you got to where you are now. You know, like where you grew up and just sort of some of your influences through life and big memories and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've got a lot of influences. I grew up in rural Alberta here on a farm. And so
Crazy.
I've got a lot of my grandpa played trumpet in a band, and my parents both love dancing and singing and stuff. So I've got a lot of influences from the countryside of things, which is kind of cool. But then, of course, we grew up in this cool era where the internet was coming. Like I had the old dial-up internet growing up and listened to a lot of Kanye and Eminem, and then got really into the Tyler, the Creators, and the Childish Gambinos when I was a little bit older. And I learned guitar when I was 12. That was like the main start, is I learned guitar just through school. We had lessons, and I just loved writing songs. So all sorts of genres. I've been writing pretty much the majority of my life now. Just love writing songs.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely gonna get into the guitar teacher you had at school, because I did my research on you, and when we get there, I want that story for sure, because that's a crazy story. So, let's just start with this. Your name. Tell us a story behind that, what it means, how you picked out that name, and if you've had any other ones in the past.
Yeah, I was dropping music as Shane William Kimber up until my last year of university, when I sort of decided I want to turn over a new fresh leaf, and I've just learned so much since I started making music. I want to have a new name, sort of fresh start.
Rebrand,
so I decided
right?
Sorry?
You want to rebrand and sort of come out like the new and improved version?
Honestly, here's what it was. I had this album called Thomas that I released under the name Shane William Kimber. And that album to me is still the most special piece of art I think that I've ever created, because it was all these songs from me growing up. It's really me taking a look at myself, deciding who I want to be, doing this deep dive into my brain. And it just felt so special that I wanted to keep it to myself. And it was sort of attached to my name. And I've since released it under the name Shane William Kimber. I feel like, to me, I was sort of going through an ugly phase, like a middle phase, sort of like I was a caterpie, and then I had to be a metapod, and now I'm sort of starting to be a butterfree, to use Pokemon terms. And I wanted something new. I wanted to, I guess in a sense, I wanted to not be myself. I wanted to make stuff that wasn't so personal, and giving it a name and sort of a place to live felt right. And so I picked scintilla, and that's just a word that means sparks. It means little sparks, and that sort of refers to both inspiration and fire. And I like that word because I really love campfires, and when the little sparks fly up, the little scintillas fly into the night, that looks dope. And I wanted to spark inspiration. I wanted to be a spark for people and inspire people. And then somebody else was already called Scintilla, so I decided to add OGR to the front of it, which is a reference to this little music label that I was trying to get going with me and some friends in college. And I still have dreams for what OGR, Overgrowth Renaissance, will become. But I decided at a certain point, I need to just focus on me, my music, get me off the ground. Secure your own life mask before helping other people secure their own type of thing. And that's how OGR-SCINTILLA came to be. And I like it. It's got a ring, and it's also hard enough to remember. Like when I tell people my name's OGR-SCINTILLA, they're just like, what? I need to write that down because I don't know what you just said.
Well,
so it sort of starts a conversation.
Yeah. The other good part about it is I'm sure if you just use the name Scintilla, it'd be really hard to be the top of like the YouTube search algorithm and stuff like that. But as soon as you add the OGR in front, it's unique enough where if you put that in, it's going to be you coming up, you know? Yeah. I've had the same issues with my name. People call me AGB, but if you look on my YouTube, it's AGB the Don. And I think the Don part sounds horrible. But I know if you just put AGB, bro, there's going to be 10 million search results. I'm going to be somewhere in the middle. You're never going to find it. You want people, when they type in your name, boom, you're right there. Click on it. So I think like the name really works out, and like it's awesome that you have a name that means something. I wish my name meant as much.
What's your AGB?
It stands for Alex Gets Bands, bro. I made it in high school. Yeah.
It's like that Hotmail account that you still got linked to your stuff, and every once in a while it comes up like, yo, what's your email?
And like,
your Snapchat username. You can't name mine.
My Snapchat username is bad too. It was another one I made in high school. It's Lean in My Cup 514.
Yeah, it's just like, damn, Snapchat. You're really gonna make me look at my past mistakes forever. I can't change that.
Exactly,
That's
bro.
Cold.
Okay, so I know you talked about like that you had a lot of musical and creative influence from your parents and from the stuff around you. What was your first like real experience with music? Like, what's the first thing you remember as your memory and like, this is my first musical experience, and it like, got you to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, I've got the thing that comes to my mind is just we would ride around going places with my parents, and they had lots of CDs. They would play lots of music for us. And they had like those big fun party mix CDs, and it just had a collection of hits. But then they also there was this Canadian band called Great Big Sea. I don't know if you know them, but they rock and just great songwriting. Who else would they play? I'm trying to think. My dad liked a lot of his sort of 70s and 80s rock. He loved Supertramp and Meatloaf. He really liked Meatloaf. And again, but I think they both just gravitated to well-written songs, and they showed me a lot of well-written songs. And that influenced me a lot, where growing up, we also had a Black Eyed Peas CD. That was probably my first hip-hop sort of time that somebody showed me. We had Elefunk. And there were some great songs on that album. And I'm trying to think of like personally my first musical experience. I mean, I think it's really just sort of learning guitar in junior high. That's the thing that comes to mind for a personal. I just remember being in the computer room that we had, sort of like a little office, and I'd leave my guitar in there, and I just strum one chord I just loved it. The feeling of the way that the sound would reverberate through your body. And there's something about it. It was just like me and that guitar just hanging out.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you're touching on learning guitar in junior high. Do you want to touch on who your teacher was? We can touch on that now. I think that's a pretty good story.
It's a dope story. Mike O'Hara, I believe is his name. And shout out to him. He was a great teacher. And he is the same guy who taught the members of Nickelback how to play guitar. He's from Hanna, Alberta. It was like an hour from where I live. Yeah. And my mom actually babysat Chad Kruger when she was in high school and he was a little shit. She always tells the story about how she went to their house. And he had like a crazy childhood, single mom, and they were moving all over. Like at that point, they were living in Oyen, then they moved to Hanna. And I don't know all the details of his life, but basically, she put him to bed, went to check on him, and he was gone. The window was open. I think he was like 9 or 10. Snuck out. Like a couple hours, he came back, but she was just losing her mind. She was probably 14 or 15, just thinking, "Oh my God, I lost this kid. Like I'm dead." And then, so he was a little hellion from a young age, and the guitar teacher also hated them. Like he quit giving them. He at a certain point he was so frustrated with them. He's like, "You guys are never going to amount to anything. Like, you won't listen. You won't learn. You need to learn these fundamentals." And they're just like, "Nah, we got the basics. We're going to go be rock stars." And they did it. So that's really cool.
I'm sure they're the exception, though. I'm sure most of the other people like that didn't make it, but that's still insane that maybe he gave them part of the drive to be like, you know what? Well, we are going to do it.
I think some people they're so all in, and he seems like they've got that sort of rock star energy where it's like, I'm going to be rich and famous or I'm going to die on the street, and I don't have a plan B. And, that's like.
Yeah. And with those people, they're either talented and they often make it, or they're the type of person who's really not talented and should have never made that decision and end up in a horrible place. So, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about like a little bit of your music history more recently, and like just sort of give us like a brief history of how you became the Canadian remix guy, because that's what you're known for. I see videos on, I think, TikTok, I know on YouTube, I know all over Instagram. You've got lots of clips, you have the most Canadian songs there are, pretty much, So just talk to us about how you got there.
I graduated university in 2018, and I released a little mixtape. There's stuff I'd been working on through university, and it went pretty well. Like, it got a few little streams, but it was not anything major. And I was trying to grow a fan base because I decided I want to be a musician. And it's not now or never. I know that you could start your musician career at 60 and be successful, but I was just at that turning point where it's sort of, I get a job like the rest of my friends, or I give this a try. So I just started really trying to find what would work, and just sort of trial and error, learn from experience. And I was doing covers on YouTube and all these things. And at the time, this Old Town Road song was absolutely explosive, and people didn't even really know what TikTok was yet, but there was this murmurings of, this song got big through TikTok. So I decided, okay, what's that? Downloaded it, started in 2019, I had TikTok, and that was a little bit ahead of the game. Yeah. So I sort of had myself established in November of 2019. We got a bunch of snow, and I thought, let's make a song about just sitting in the snow. This could be funny. Like, take my shirt off, sit in the snow. And it got, I forget, at that point, I'd worked for several months posting 2 or 3 times a day. I really committed to TikTok. I thought, this is the thing, I'm going to try it. And I'd gotten up to 3,000 followers, and I didn't tell any of my friends or family or other fans that I was starting it. I started from 0 just to see if I could really grow it.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that actually later, but I'll finish the story.
Yeah.
So I was up to like 3,000 followers, and this one video got me to 40,000 followers in like 3 days with this Canadian thing. And I thought, oh my God, I should keep doing this because people like it. And it actually kept hitting. So I had a video right in like January of 2020 hit 1 million views for the first time, and that was unbelievable to me.
Bet, yeah.
And I don't know really if it was good or bad, but COVID hit around that time, and then TikTok really took off, and I sort of had my foot in the door and was a little bit established, so I knew the platform.
And you're locked in the house. So I mean, it helps. Yeah,
and then I started learning. I learned so much from TikTok because it really is this sort of, if it's funny, people are going to like it. And if it's not funny, if it's not good, then they're not going to like it. And you can learn a lot if you're sort of humble enough to go, okay, that video flopped, even though I spent 3 hours on that one and it flopped. But this one I spent 15 minutes on got a lot of views. Yeah. If you're humble enough to go like, okay, my work, the amount of work I put into something does not determine how good it is, which I think a lot of artists need to know, because I don't know, you just get so attached to your art and you spend weeks and weeks and weeks on a song and put it out, and it just doesn't resonate with people. And it resonates with you, but it doesn't mean it's a bad song. It's just, you got to learn and take feedback. TikTok's a great place to get feedback. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to say starting from 0 was incredible, because there was I don't know why I feel this way, but whenever my friends would come to my show just to support me, I didn't like that. It's like, if you don't want to see me perform, then please, don't come. I want people who are there because they want to be there. I hate feeling like I'm making people guilty or just, gotta support my friends. And then, the whole thing. I really enjoy that I have people now who are like, I want to see this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big difference. Like, 10 plus years ago when I made music, like my music wasn't very good, right? But it was the start of my journey. And like when I would send songs to people and I would get an answer back like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, bro, did you listen to the song? Like, it's not that good. Like, it's not like it has 100 views. It's not some amazing song. Now I can never trust you again. Like, just tell me the truth. So my YouTube that I have now, it's not really, my YouTube's not music based. I do all kinds of other stuff. Like, I did the exact same thing as you, where I'm like, I'm going to start this YouTube, and if it doesn't do anything, no one's ever going to know about it that I know. But if it gets somewhere, then maybe I'll start telling people about it and like show it off, because I don't want people around here to just find me. And also for me, like I live in Quebec. So it's very French. It's hard to do stuff in English. So I'm like, I don't want a Quebec audience. I need like, I really focused on an American audience, which I've been able to do 40-50% of my audience. So you know, I know exactly what you're saying with the, I don't need the people coming to do a handout. I want real people who care about what I'm doing and are tuning in. And the other thing I want to add is I think that living where you are in a very rural community, I live in Montreal. Most of the other people in the network live in Toronto. So we're in very urban, dense areas where it does have some help with music. But with the new scene and TikTok and everything going online, you can be someone on a farm in Alberta and still getting millions of views, competing with, you know, some of the biggest rappers in Canada in terms of views, you know? And it's like, it gives you all these new tools. So I think it's like, it's awesome that we have all this nowadays for people in any position. If they, you know, obviously learn the stuff to be able to record and do all that stuff, that they can really put out content and have a way to have it found by people all over. So the next thing I want to ask you, sort of leading off my last question, is how do you choose what songs to remix? Do you just like hear a song and you're like, you start coming up with something, or how does that go? Tell us about that.
I think there's the combination of like, I normally pick songs that people are going to know, because the advantage of doing a remix is tapping into that familiarity. Yeah. And sometimes it's a new song, sometimes it's an older song. One of my more recent ones, Party in Canada, like Party in the USA, it just sort of had a natural fit to go, this works. And sometimes it's just a song I like. So I've done quite a few like Post Malone remixes, just because I love Post Malone's music, and I think he's got a sort of a nice personality. So there's a combination of factors, but you're definitely right where there's been lots of songs where I tried to remix them and the writing just doesn't really roll. And then there's other ones where I copy and paste the lyrics from Google, put them in a note, and I'm just boom, 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 boom. And within an hour or two, I've got the whole thing written. And I don't know that I can explain that process and how it happens in my head, other than I practice a lot and I write songs every single day. And I've been doing it since I was 12. And I sucked when I started. I wrote some really great songs from the start, don't get me wrong, but I have one good song for every 9 that I threw away in the beginning. And now it's still like that, honestly. Not that I throw them away, it's just that I don't do anything with them. But you just sort of get that ball rolling. I think I just trained my brain over the course of the past decade to write song lyrics. And So
what's your favorite song out of all the ones you've made? Which song that you have that's out that people know, or you're like, this is, if I had to pick one song, it would be this one?
I have a different answer to this every day.
Fair enough.
I really like Party in Canada. I think that it ticks pretty much all the boxes for what I want to accomplish when I'm writing a song. I think that narratively it achieves something where there's sort of a little bit of a story to it, especially in the second verse, where I talk about going to the hockey rink and everybody thinks I suck at hockey, and then I'm great at hockey and everybody thinks I'm cool. I love incorporating sort of miniature segments of story into a song, even if it's just a silly song. And then the chorus is good. I actually remade the Party in Canada beat from scratch. And I'm really proud of how it turned out.
Very good.
I think that it sounds really close to the original, but I actually think that mine has some things that are stronger.
It might, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I mix my own music, and I mixed it with more of a hip hop genre ear, whereas the original is mixed with more of a radio pop sound. So some of the low end and stuff has a little bit extra beef to it that I like in my version.
Awesome. And, yeah, my favorite song from you is Tim's Run, I think, for sure.
Thank you.
I really like that one. I think that was one of the first ones I seen too, like back when I first messaged you and all that. Okay, so I know you just touched on that you do your own recording, and I know from like the stuff that I've done that you play instruments, you mix, you master, you're doing your own videos. Everything you're doing is pretty much 100% you. So just sort of talk to us about that, like how you learned all that. And obviously I think if you're rural area, it's probably good to know all that, so you don't have to travel super far to like find a producer or a studio. But just kind of talk to us a bit about that. Like I find, you know, the production, all that stuff is good, but the fact that you play the instruments on top of that, and then I seen that you said I'll like learn an instrument, play it for a beat, and then forget it. Like that's pretty crazy. Not a lot of people are doing that these days. So I just sort of talk to us about all that stuff, from the production to playing the instruments. Like just touch on that.
That sparked so many thoughts in my head. The first thing that I thought was, this reminds me of the conversation about making your name Googleable, because it's sort of interesting to me how the modern mediums of art influence the creative process. So an artist's name today, they'll think, can I be Googled? And with the way that I've learned, I've been so influenced by the short form media medium that I write and put out a ton of content. And I was already learning the self-production thing sort of coming up, because I just wanted to record my stuff on GarageBand. I loved playing with sound, even more than music. I just love sound. I'll just tinker with some synth and just come up with as weird a sound as I can think of. But when I really started doing social media, I realized that being able to produce a large amount of art is very, very valuable, debatably more valuable than the actual quality, because of what I said about how people will decide what they like. You can put out 10 songs, the first 9 suck, the 10th one hits, and everybody forgets about the other 9, as opposed to like I've heard lots of people say this now, where it's not up to you to decide if your art is good or not. It's up to you to put it out and let other people decide if it's good, if that's sort of the route you want to go.
Yeah.
And to me, sorry, I was thinking back to what the original question was, because I just got ranting.
It's all good. Just sort of go on the path that you're going with.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep rolling with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as I learned, I sort of discovered that being able to do things myself was really valuable, because I could do it quickly and cost effectively. I mean, there's so many great engineers and people like that out there, but they need to get paid for their work. And if you're putting out an album a year and you want it to be really top quality, then that makes a lot of sense to do. But if you're me, when I'm putting out sometimes a song every 2 weeks in high season of whatever, or like under Shane William Kimber, I recently put out 35 songs, a 35 song project. When you're sort of trying to get that many song ideas out of your head, it's like a blessing and a curse. I write songs every day, but now I've got all these songs and I don't know what to do with them. I don't have thousands of dollars every month to hire someone. So I sort of learned through that. And it's also been really good because it helped me develop my tastes. I think that a lot of musicians, especially like rappers, they sort of get into the type beat slump. And and I mean, you know what's dope, but you don't necessarily know why it's dope or how to replicate it. And I know so many musicians who they do something on a guitar beat, sort of like an XXX Tentacion type beat, and then they hop onto some sort of a trap type beat, and they sort of have a little bit of a blurry vision for what they see for themselves. They know what's dope, and they can get on a beat and make something dope, but there's just a little bit of a lack of identity. And I think that even more than keeping my costs low, lots of output, all these things, what really matters the most to me with going through this process, spending years and years and years sort of figuring out how to do it myself, is that I've developed taste and I've developed a little bit of a sonic blueprint or footprint. Yeah. Footprint, fingerprint, whatever. There's something about one of my songs where you kind of know that it's mine, even though they might sound real different.
Yeah, well, I remember when I first messaged you, right? Like, I'll use your Instagram, for example. Most of your reels you had were between 10 and 30,000 views. And I remember you posted one, I don't know, not long after we first messaged at the end of last year, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw it and through my story or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know if this guy knows it, but I'm like, this is probably going to get like 1 million views. It was your first one to blow up. I don't remember which one it was. I remember seeing it. And like, I was at my mom's for a few days, like up north. And then I came back and I remember you seeing a post thanking everyone for how big it had gotten. And I go look and there's like about 1 million views on it. And I'm like, wow, like, you know, you really deserve that.
Thank you.
So the other thing I want to
Canadian Paradise one.
Yeah.
Was it, I started on a snowmobile?
I think so. It might have
been. That was a recent one. That TikTok reel. That one's bigger than I've ever had a video. It's around 6 million views now. No,
I did see that one, but the one I'm talking about was before that. Because I know that one was, like you said, at like 6 million was your biggest, but that one was more recent. The one that I saw was a little bit before that.
Okay.
So I don't remember. Like, they're all Canadian content. Sometimes it's hard to remember this reel versus that. I know what you're saying. So back to what you were saying, you do all that production, you're able to do so much. Have you ever thought about producing for other people? Because here, I'll be honest, from all the things you just said, I feel like if you had someone who's just very talented at either singing or rapping, but none of the other stuff, and you kind of took them under your wing and handled all that, I feel like you could create a successful musician.
I think I could. That'd be really fun. I think that if that opportunity came up, then that would, I've produced for people in the past and I did a lot through college actually. And I learned so much because I'd just been me in my bedroom making music and getting out and working with like rappers and folk singers and different, like DJs and stuff like that. It really expanded my horizons as to what's possible, but also my strengths. And realizing that people going like, oh man, like you just wrote that verse in like 20 minutes. That's crazy. And me going like, oh, I guess that is crazy. I guess not everybody does that. Super, super important. To me, when it comes to collaborating with people, what's so much more important than talent is their mentality. Because for me, I definitely have a natural inclination to enjoy sound and enjoy writing songs, but pretty much everything else, vocally, musically, taste-wise, has been learned and worked for. And that's the underlying, I'm really big on seeing the underlying motivators and sort of essence of what's going on, as opposed to just looking at like, oh, that person's a great singer. Because quite frankly, talent is not rare. Everybody in your high school or whatever, you know, there was some girl in your class who had a great voice or could really play the piano, or like everybody knows a talented singer. They're not rare at all, really. And what's really important to me is somebody who is willing to approach it with a certain degree of passion. And if I find somebody who's like that, that's sort of, it's not about how hard they push per se, but it's just about consistency and not getting deterred. Because there's so many people, so many musicians who I've met who they can't take the failure that is necessary to be successful. And there's a lot of failure that you have to understand is not failure. It is learning. And if you don't really love learning and really have this thing in you where it's not about succeeding. It's about, I love making music so much and I just want to get really good at making music. And if nobody ever hears it, I truly do not care. And that's the thing that I'd be looking for if I wanted to find somebody like that to really take, mentor. And I'd also want them to be mentored. I'd want them to be really excited about what I'm bringing to the table. I'm not going to try to convince them. I feel like I'm happy to help anyone with questions or whatever it is. Like, I love helping people with music when they approach me, but I'm not going to track someone down to be like, yeah, I'm going to, I want someone with that drive.
But if the right opportunity is there, you're saying you're open to it, right? So anyone who's watching, if you're into music or even if you just have some questions, my man here, he's super open. He's going to answer you. You can message him. You could message me. I'm not as much into the straight music side. I'm a lot more into the hip hop, but I can still help people with a lot of stuff. And I really understand what you're saying with the, putting themselves out there, because it's really hard, especially the first song or like things like that, because you're always risking a bunch of people making fun of you. And like, I used to battle rap back in the day, and like you're risking getting embarrassed on the internet for the rest of your life, something that you can't take down that your kids might see. And like, it's always the risk. So when people are willing to do it, it's really something. And a lot of people realize, like, when you first start, it's not going to be where you end. It's not going to be polished content with everything great. It's so rare for someone on their first couple of songs or anything in terms of music for them to blow up right away, because it's usually trash. And it's always a process of getting past that point that, like you said, it's hard for a lot of people. So with all that, like, what do you see in the future? Like, where do you want to go with your music? Like, what's the plans?
I wanted to address something that you said, because I think it's a really interesting conversation, is about that risk. Yeah. And that perceived risk. And I really want to make it clear that it's a very important thought to explore, I think. The risk of embarrassment. And I think that you should really ask yourself what you are risking. Like, what is at stake? Being embarrassed. And I just because it's been so important to me to understand that there is no risk. Unless maybe you are saying something that could get you outcast from your community or your family or something like that, then there is a true perceived risk. But for me, when I wanted to be like a rapper, and I was fairly open about it through college, and I know people laughed at me, but I really didn't notice for some reason, because I loved what I was doing. And people still were my friends. People didn't quit talking to me. My friends might have thought I was a nut job because I wanted to be a musician or a rapper or whatever. I'm just like, okay, Shane, whatever, do your thing. But I would encourage people to meditate on that perception of risk when it comes to putting yourself out there. Because I think that the real risk is just being seen. I think that that's masks. I think that being seen in general is scary. Having people really know who you are is scary. And of course, music for us is a lot of us is an outlet to express who we really are. Yeah. The person who we are that we don't always show out in public. And that is very scary. But what are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of somebody coming up and doing something to you, or is it just sort of like that internal fear of like sort of like a self-love thing, maybe some imposter syndrome and self-doubt and those sorts of concepts? Like, I think that you don't have to. That doesn't mean you should go up on stage and join the talent show and throw yourself into the fire. I just mean, for me, bravery is such an important concept. I think it's like the concept for me. And I'm understanding that bravery is just action, and it doesn't have to be big action. It can be little actions. So many people are like, how do you write this song? Or how do you sing this song or do these things? And to me, I started writing in my notebook. And then eventually I started recording it into the voice memos on my phone. And then eventually I started showing some of my close friends. And then eventually I started posting it on my Facebook when I was like a young kid. And it's not just 0 to 100 when it comes to being yourself and being out there and letting the world see who you are. It's something to work at, and it's a skill that is so much bigger than music. Mm-hmm. So I'm inclined to think what you have to lose by expressing yourself is nothing in comparison to what you have to lose by not expressing yourself.
Facts.
Which could possibly
100%.
be a lifetime of self-hate and misery and compressing yourself down and not letting yourself shine. Mm-hmm. That to me is a hell of a lot more painful than embarrassment.
Yeah,
and if you can work in that direction, that's really important.
And like the thing that people don't realize is when you put something out, it's like, it's that first little bit where it's going to be really hard. It's going to be tough. You're going to get hit with a lot of like nerves at first, but that goes away. What doesn't go away is when you're like, I should have, I could have, and I would have, but I didn't. When you do that, you're going to spend forever regretting it. You know, like making music didn't really go anywhere for me. It's still something I do for fun, but I don't regret it at all, because I look at it like, yeah, my music wasn't great, but if I never started and took those steps and put myself out there, I wouldn't have a show on this network. I wouldn't have my own YouTube channel. I wouldn't be able to do all kinds of views on my YouTube channel, you know, like, and I really enjoy that stuff. And it went from like being scared of what people were going to say to being like, okay, you didn't like that. Well, I'm going to show you, I'm gonna make something you can like, and you're gonna eat your words. You know, that's what a lot of people get lost in their music. It's like when you first start, those people who criticize you, if you just give up, they won. But if you keep pushing and one day, you know, get 1 million views, they're gonna eat their words. And a lot of those people are gonna come back and like crawl out of the woodwork and start being in your DMs like, hey, you know, what's up, buddy? I always knew you could do it. And then it's like, yeah, I guess. So
I think, yeah, for me, I think that I try to be careful about doing it for other people, whether it's like proving them wrong, proving them right, all sorts of things like that. That's definitely a factor. But for me, I think it's sort of this love of the game that I really, for some reason, love making music, and being able to become successful at it feels amazing. But I know that I would still be doing it regardless. And I do try to return to that feeling and not lose that sort of, it's like an inner child. It's sort of that first spark. What got you excited about this?
You're always chasing it.
Yeah. And sort of understanding that, yeah, that's a really special thing. A lot of people sort of lose that. And I think the people that lose that are the people who sort of hate when you're trying to do something different or try to be yourself. And for some people, it's a jealousy. For some people, like a lot of people have parents who will sort of go, oh, are you sure you should do that? That's not a very consistent income or whatever. And that's a genuine fear that they have. But it's still rooted in their own sort of mentality of like, oh, taking risks is bad. You know, that's really dangerous. But I don't think the perceived risk is as high as people think it is.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to take risks. I mean, as long as you have a plan B, if all else fails, taking risks is important, especially when you're young and stuff like that. Like I'm turning 30 next year. So like, you know, I'm a little more on like, you know, I'm a little more established in my life and going where I want to be. But when I was younger, like I can think of things where I'm like, yeah, I should have taken that risk or done this because it could have paid off more in the end. And it's like, you should always have a plan B, but like risks are never like a bad thing. Because even if they don't work out, everything that you learned is still super valuable. So what we're speaking on that, I know we kind of like talked about like nerves and, you know, just putting yourself out there and the pros and the cons both ways. What's some of the advice you would want to give to like younger artists that are coming up? They see what you're doing. You have great success. You're doing well. What advice would you give them?
Your ego is killing you. Your ego is crushing you, man.
It'll do that.
Not you specifically. This is the
no,
advice.
I got you.
Okay, I
got
wanted to
you,
make that clear. It's like, I don't want to make you think I'm talking.
No worries, bro.
Art is an incredible thing, but your purpose in life is not to be an artist, and don't get caught up. People tie their ego to their art way too much, and they take it way too personally, and it holds them back from all this growth. Because if people create this split in their mind where life is hard and awful, and I've been through so much, but the reason that I've been through all this pain is so that I can create my art. And I kind of think that that's nonsense, because it just gets way too personal, way too emotional, way too tied to a person's spirit and ego. And if you can see that and be like, yeah, I do create this art out of my struggles, but art is almost more of like a byproduct. Art is like a natural byproduct of just being alive. It's like poop. Art is like, you need a healthy art. You need to get that art out of you to keep your system healthy. Just like if you get constipated, your guts will, have problems. If you quit making art, then your soul is going to have problems.
Yeah.
And you do it to be healthy and to live a good life and to be this healthy person, and you produce that art. Don't worship your art so much. Don't get so attached to your art. Don't get your ego so wrapped up in your art that when somebody doesn't like it, you close your ears and quit taking feedback, quit learning.
Yeah.
Of course, some people are going to give you bad feedback. That happens. But you got to be self-aware and understand that every person you meet is an opportunity to learn, even if what you learn is this person's an idiot. You can always learn something from everybody. But don't get too attached to your art. Every piece of art is an opportunity to learn and get better at what you do. I think as artists, I love ranting today. Wow, I'm ranty today. I love it. Not everybody, artists in general, I think have this fear in the back of their mind when they're working on a great project that this is going to be the best thing that they ever make. And if they don't get it just right, then they're blowing their shot. It's like, oh man, this album is so good. It has to be perfect because like these are the best songs I've ever written. This needs to be, I need to get the drop just right. And they forget that, I mean, you came up with those ideas. You've got more ideas cooking in the back already. You've got another 1,000 albums back in there. Get that one out and, promote it and get on to the next one or whatever it is. Nothing is worth stewing over that much. When people stew and circle and get looping in their brains and they get, oh, this is my masterpiece, all these things. It's just keep that shit pushing.
Awesome. Makes sense, bro. Okay, so the next question I want to go to, I know you use YouTube. You've got stuff going there. Got that popping. You use your Instagram. You got it popping there. You've talked to us about your TikTok. You've got that popping there. Now, all three of those social media platforms, they do have a lot in common, but they also have big differences. Do you want to kind of just like talk to us about like, the differences you see in TikTok versus YouTube and Instagram? Because, like something that might go crazy on Instagram might not go crazy on TikTok. And people sometimes assume, oh, if it went crazy here, it's going to go crazy there. And it doesn't always work like that.
I think that there's strong cultural differences between the platforms, and I'm a huge comment section person. I swipe through TikTok and lots of my stuff that comes up, it's not even the post that's funny. It's when you go in the comments, people saying the funniest stuff in response to these videos. And TikTok is very young, sarcastic, quippy. They are not loyal. Whatever trend is going on the platform, it's not so much about the user as it is about the trend. And that's why trends are dangerous on TikTok, I think. I think people chase trends on TikTok a little too much. And I really try to, capitalize on if a song's popular, I'll remix it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I try to stay in my niche and my lane on TikTok because I think that the bounce rate is so high. They give you all this traffic, but it's like who's actually seeing who you are and sticking around.
Well, and I think with platforms like that, they want people like it when you kind of have a lane. Because I've seen some TikToks where it's this and then that and then this, and it's like, bro, I don't know what I'm going to get from you. I'm not super interested in that.
I think of it like a TV channel, like a sports channel. We're on a sports channel. You might see football, basketball, hockey, lots of different sports, but they're all sports.
It's sports, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to see football and then an Adam Sandler movie and then a history documentary all in one channel. It throws people off.
You might see that on the History Channel.
Yeah, the History Channel. It's like
everything but history.
Yeah. Let's have half an hour of history and then half an hour of why aliens are involved.
Yeah, or the Illuminati.
Ancient Aliens is a bomb ass show though.
As long as you don't take it too seriously, yeah.
No, I don't take it. Yeah, it's so funny because it's like the first 40 minutes is this interesting history about Mesopotamia. They did this and they had all these structures here and this and all the this, that, and the other, and the reason that they studied the stars is to communicate with aliens. Is like the last 20 minutes, just hell breaks loose and then it just goes.
Or like they'll have a guy talking and it says Dr. whatever his name is and you look him up. It's like, bro, this guy's an actor. He's not a doctor. Why is it like, bro? Yeah, no, I feel you on that. All right. So I wanted to touch, this is like my last major topic, like, a major one I really wanted to talk to you about because I know I've seen a post from you back in the day. So we have what everybody's calling the internet censorship bill here in Canada.
C11, yeah.
Kind of just talk to me about what your opinion is on that. Me and Friday have had a live stream about that. We've done a few little things here and there explaining it. We're not in support of it at all. I think you're kind of in the same boat as us, but just talk to us about that. I think it's a super important issue for Canadian content creators, and you have the most Canadian content I know. So
that's the thing. I don't know. Like with my Canadian content, the thing about the bill is it seems to be very vague in what is Canadian content and what that approval process looks like. So whenever a government in any capacity says, we're going to give ourselves unlimited power, and don't worry, we'll use it appropriately. Maybe they will. Maybe they will use it appropriately, but it seems like they're just giving themselves the ability to take whatever measures they want.
Yeah.
And that not knowing is definitely concerning. Maybe this government, maybe it won't be now, maybe it'll be in 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is. But somebody could come along who decides, this music is too raunchy, so we're going to have no swear words, or of course it could be different political views could be censored. It's impossible to know, and that is the issue to me.
Yeah, and I mean, not only that, like just based on the government that's in power, that sort of thing can change. So first the goalposts are here, then they're over here. Like the way I like to put it is I find it's a solution looking for a problem. As a Canadian content creator, before this got brought up, I was never like, oh yeah, how like back in the day they needed to make sure a certain number of Canadian program. I never felt like that because it's like we have access to the internet. We're on the exact same footing as someone who's in America, someone who's in Egypt, someone who's in China. You have access to the internet. There's people there. If you put out good content and you push it, you're going to get people watching. So it's like you said, I find it's a very dangerous thing where it's like, first off, we don't need it. Who knows what it's going to be used for? And it's like, for someone like you with your content as Canadian as it is, if this bill was written properly, especially for you, it should be like, this is clearly Canadian. Like this should be 100%. Like there shouldn't be any questions with that. And like the thing I see happening is content that's made by big companies that have lobbyists and a lot of money. No problem. That's Canadian, even if not everybody who made it who's Canadian. But people like you or us here at our network who, we're not CTV or something like that. We might have a hard time of having them look at us the same same way. And it's like, you know, a lot of the content that our network covers is like a lot of the stuff going on in intercity Toronto, because that's where the network's based out of. And a lot of the rappers out there, you know, they're not like you where it's very positive. You know, they have a lot of other stuff going on, and it's like I already see it's like, yeah, the government's gonna mess up all these people. And like a lot of people in situations like that really use music as a way to like build themselves out of it. And if all of a sudden it's like, oh no, you said something bad in your song, we're not taking you, it's like, yo, like it's not good. So yeah, that's my opinion on it.
One thing that I worry about honestly is, I mean, like you said, I should be fine. I'm a white guy who sings about Canada, and I feel like I will probably align with the views of whatever government. I mean, it's Canada. You see a lot of like, not everything's about race, but this in particular, it's like, is it going to be a lot of people who are from different races, different backgrounds, all sorts of things coming out of, say, Toronto, very, very diverse city, one of the most diverse cities in the world, I believe. And is our government going to be deciding what voices matter? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it gives voices to people who need it, but I don't necessarily trust a government to make that call. I feel like the culture has an important role in that. Like, people are going to see somebody who they relate with, and they're going to champion them because of they're speaking for them, whether it's a different race, a different gender, a different sexual orientation, whatever it is. The world's changing in that way, and it's a good change that people are getting more voices out there. I don't know that we need the government to decide, because I mean, sometimes they're going to push something that it might not necessarily be reflective of what is real. Like, I don't know. It's I don't see why somebody shouldn't just be judged for their content and nothing else.
Yeah, as long as nothing in your content is like, you know, like there's limits. As long as it's okay. Like, here's the thing I'll say. For YouTube to openly come out against it is pretty crazy. YouTube, which is a platform which I've always been good with, but I know that there sometimes can be censoring and stuff like that. For YouTube to come so strongly against it, it's like YouTube knows that it's going to be worse than what they're doing. And I look at YouTube where I'm like, okay, like it's not perfectly free, but as long as you're reasonable, you could put your content out, and they're not super bad with it. Just don't do some crazy stuff. But then now that the government's involved, you have the YouTube guidelines, you're going to have whatever the government says, and it never ends with what they're doing now. You know, they do this, and then, you know, somewhere down the road, they're like, oh, we want even more power. We want to be able to say, oh, no, you can't post this, or things like that. And then it's like you end up just getting a bunch of Canadian content creators that are, one, going to leave Canada, and two, going to use VPNs and post from other places, which basically like takes the viewership and the algorithm away from Canada. Like, I think one of the amazing things right now with the internet is we have people like you, we have people all across the country able to do all kinds of things, and a higher percentage of people, you know, working in media and like, you know, and doing that sort of stuff, that it's better than it's ever been. Why do we need a law to make it, you know, more controlled? And like, you know, what's going on? Like,
yeah, there's so much crackdown on, they want their cut of the internet. I don't know if you relate, but I'm 27, so I grew up when the internet was sort of just getting rolling.
29.
You know, like Facebook was just starting, and MSN Messenger, and we were actually on, like, for me, there was some wild shit on the internet, and there was not as much censorship. And I have a nostalgia for that, because I feel like it was pure in its chaos. Whereas when you try to take something like the internet and put it in a cage, you're losing so much. What if somebody wants to talk about the struggles they've endured, and they do it in a way that's too raunchy to be approved as Canadian content? What if somebody, like, I listened to Eminem growing up. He's got some songs that the Canadian government probably does not want to put a big stamp on. But when you're a young kid or somebody who's been through some real shit, it's relatable, and you need to hear that. Like a song like Stan. I mean, that's a song that they probably don't want to, put their check mark on, but that's a masterpiece that looks at mental health and just a dark reality that people face, and it's beautiful.
Well, that's the thing with YouTube and music. So much of it is used to bring light to dark situations that it's like you can't really bring light to a dark situation without saying some things that might, not everybody can handle. But it's more of like, warn people, and then the people who can't handle it can leave before, and it's like that should be their choice. I don't feel like they even want the government saying, but like it's really easy for the government to go and convince people, not me and you and like the internet generations and even the ones a bit before, but it's like these older people who are less out of touch where they can like say, yeah, if we don't control the internet, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. Yeah. It was like video games back in the day. I remember my parents were super freaked out about, my parents were the least strict parents ever. Like my parents were buying me cigarettes at like 13, but they didn't want me.
Grand Theft Auto.
I did, but like they didn't know what the game was. So I was playing it in front of them. They didn't know that was the game. But I remember getting this whole speech of like never buying that game, never playing it. And I'm in my head, I'm like, yo, I own that game and I play in front of you all the time. Like, what? Yeah. So in my head, I'm like, what do you think this game is? Like, like you've seen me play the game. You just don't know it's the game. So it's like people in those older generations, the ones who aren't in touch, are super easy to fool. And that's the demographic they're going after. But it's like, that's not the demographic that's using the internet, that's benefiting from all these things. So I see like you said, if it's not right away, somewhere down the road, if it gets past the way they're putting it, there'll be problems.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about it. I've definitely posted. There's a website, I forget what it is. It's an organization that TikTok actually sent an email out about long ago. Might have even been in 2020 or 2021, that it was petitions trying to get signed, trying to raise awareness for this. And I don't know what to do. It sucks. It sucks.
I mean, the one thing I would tell people, if you really care about this, if you go on Google and you take your region, just look up the MP of your region. That's the member of parliament, okay? The prime minister is the prime member of parliament, but there's over 300 other members of parliament, and their job is to listen to the public and take information from you and then relay it to the House of Commons. So if you're someone who wants to get proactive about this stuff, you go on Google, find out who your member of parliament is, and leave a message or talk to their secretary and say, these are my concerns. This is what's happening with the bill. And if you really want to pressure them, say, I'm a voter for you guys. If you don't do something about it, then I might not vote for you again. And if enough people say that, they might listen. And it's especially important if you live in an area that's controlled by the Liberals or the NDP, because those are the real two parties pushing this. Now, I don't doubt that every party in there wants this to go through. Even the ones that are fighting it, they probably want it to go through because they'll be able to use it one day. But right now, the parties that are able to make the choice are the Liberals and the NDP. So that's just for anybody who wants to, leave a little message. It takes 5 minutes. It could help. So little things like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The website that I had, I wish I could remember what it's called. They had a thing where you could put in your postal code and it would actually bring up your MP's address.
Yeah. There's if you just go on Google and write "Find My MP," there's a site from the Canadian government that'll show you your MP. It'll show you a picture of them, which party they're with, and like a little brief thing.
Yeah, that's
so. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully some people call. I mean, they're going to put the bill through. I'm pretty sure there's enough behind it. And
I think, people are just hoping for amendments at this point that can restrict it. But I have learned that for me, politics is a big sort of mental drain because I just find myself worrying about it and not doing anything. I think that when there's an issue that I really care about, I'll do something like I did send an email to my MP talking about this. I actually did. And then I try to leave it and carry on with my life.
Yeah.
So I try to learn, I try to educate, but it can be, it can be a big mental and emotional strain to get bogged down in this type of stuff because, yeah, people start to fight with themselves. And I think that fighting with ourselves is what keeps people divided. And I try to keep a broad perspective and not obsess over it too much. There's definitely something to be said to not letting yourself get too stressed out about politics. You know, it's good to care about it. It's good to like worry about the issues that affect you directly. But yeah, like, you know, I know people that go way too far with it and it ruins their lives. So, you know, you just got to have it within reason. But yeah, so that's all my topics. We can touch on anything else you want to touch on if there's anything else you want to touch on. Actually, there's one thing I wanted to ask you. Can you list off all of the instruments that I know you said you don't like, you couldn't just pick up every single one that you've played and be perfect at it right now, but can you list us off all the instruments that you have played? I know you've done guitar, bass, piano. Yeah. I have played a trumpet on a record. I literally once. I really suck at drums, but I have played drums on records before. I've got a set of drums downstairs. I have a saxophone that I goof around with sometimes. I have a banjo somewhere. Again, I don't know that I've ever used it on a record, but it's just fun to mess around with.
Yeah.
Realistically, I would say I know how to play piano, sort of like mainly guitar and then piano. Those are the two instruments. But again, I just like clunk chords on the piano. Is there anything else? Is there anything else cool that I've used on a record? No, that's pretty much it, I think. But again, I just sort of muddle around. And sometimes you get, like in the record I played the trumpet on, because it sucked, I was doing the little melody I wanted, and then there was one part where I sort of just like did this funny little squeal that was a mistake. But when I doused it in reverb, it sounded awesome. It sounded really cool. So I was like, cool.
Sometimes it just works out like that.
Sometimes you get too caught up in the technique. I remember when I first started music, I didn't even know what chords were or anything. So I was plunking in chords that didn't make any sense and getting sounds that you wouldn't have gone with if you were going with the right way of doing it. So sometimes doing it wrong is fun. Sometimes
that brings out the uniqueness. All right, bro. So like I said, I've covered everything. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up? I know you got to get to the cows.
Yeah. What else? I don't know. This was really fun. I enjoyed talking about it a lot.
I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, awesome. I guess I want to say that I put out a song, or I mentioned it once. I put out an album under the name Shane William Kimber. It's got 35 songs. It's called The Big Black Door. They're much more serious than what I put out under OGR-SCINTILLA. Of course, I've got lots of Canadian remixes out under OGR-SCINTILLA. And that's pretty much what I got going on right now. I got a Discord. If you find me on social media, come join the Discord because it can be really hard to keep in touch when you just follow me on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. So hop in the Discord and then I can send you an update whenever I got something cool coming out.
Awesome. So if you want to stay in good touch with my man here, you go on Discord. All of his links we're going to have down in the description. So from his Instagram to his YouTube, all that stuff is going to be down there. I really appreciate the interview, bro. You did great. Was this your first interview or have you done one before? No, I figured you had done one before. So yeah, thanks for being here. It was a great interview. This has been another episode of We Love Hip Hop. Everybody go like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You know, we're making big movements out here. I got another big interview coming up. I'm doing it Thursday or Friday. I forget which day it's booked on. Go check out my man's music. If you're interested in Canadian, like real Canadiana music, go check him out because it's as Canadian as it gets. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it really is. And if anyone's watching and you have like younger kids or something like that, it's great music for that type of stuff. It's not vulgar. It's great music. I've seen them perform at an elementary school, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Go. Great for the whole family for the most part.
Perfect. So thanks for everything, bro. And we out.
We love hip hop.